Evil cannot triumph over good. Though courage trusted and loved Dan blindly, his good deeds towards Dan, God will not overlook. No matter how bad a child is, he or she cannot be rejected or abandoned or forgotten by the mother who birthed him or her. Mother's love is supreme. Mother's love is unconditional. Ha! AGK. Remember, after what happened in the last episode, Munachi made up her mind that she's going to sell the house to raise the money to bring back the husband. Sometimes people ask you questions just to ridicule you. The best thing is to be silent, because sharing your secret to the wrong person can be the worst thing that can happen to anybody. On this episode, AGK is still suffering in the hands of the kidnappers. They are still waiting for them to get the money from AGK's family. But then, while AGK was sitting down, groaning in pain, he saw the mother coming to give him water. Wow. This is a sign of unconditional love of mother to their children. Because, after all AGK has done to the mother still came to give AGK water when he was thirsty and there was nobody to give him water to drink. While AGK was trying to drink this invisible water, one of the kidnappers saw his mouth moving and he said, Hey, what are you doing? And AGK was like, I'm thirsty. I need water to drink. He felt he was actually drinking the real water the mother was giving him. But the question I have for AGK is, aren't you ashamed that after all you did to your mother, you are drinking water from her? You are not even ashamed that your mother is coming to give you water to drink. AGK, this is enough for you to learn your lesson. If you eventually come out of this kidnapper's hand, you should go and repent and start doing good. Apologize to the people you have wronged, so that your life will be peaceful. I know that nature may have to take its course on you, but then you have to start doing the right thing. But then the kidnappers were still angry at AGK because the money has not been received. But then Munachi and the other friends went to sell the house. They came back to Munachi's mother's house and she was like, how did it go? But Munachi, as usual, could not even stand the whole thing. She started crying. And the mother was trying to console Munachi, and she told Munachi, you are a strong woman. This is not time for you to start sharing tears. But the thing is, Munachi cannot help it. The love of her life is in the hands of kidnappers. And now she has to sell her house to move into the mother's house. This is so embarrassing. After you have left your mother's house in the name of getting married, you are coming back to her because of the bad things that has happened to you. It's so frustrating starting from the beginning. But then, having gotten this money, Dan insisted that he is going to be the one to give the money to the kidnappers. But Andy was asking Dan, why do you think he will be the one to give the kidnappers the money? The kidnapper said, either you or I will bring that money. So why do you think it should be you? But Dan was like, I need to go. But you need to explain to these people the reason why you want to be the one to go and give them the money. Because I know from the beginning that Dan has bad intention. He's the one behind the kidnapping. And I know Dan is about to run away with this money. Because that is what I think he wants to do. He wants to run away with the money and not give the money to the kidnappers. Dan is so evil, he never wants to share this money with anybody. But then at the end of the day, Andy had to give up. He gave the money to Dan to go and give to the kidnappers. I just wish that Andy will set people to monitor Dan if Dan is actually going to give that money to the kidnappers, because Dan shouldn't be trusted. I think they should have seen through Dan to see that all that he is doing is evil. Dan has once confessed to Andy that he is here to destroy AGK, that to continue giving AGK good advice while he gives AGK the bad ones. So it's left for AGK to pick which side he will want to go with. That is enough reason for Andy to have set people to follow Dan, because Dan is an evil man. But then they gave him the benefit of doubt for him to go and give the kidnappers the money and bring back Munachi's husband. The shocking thing is that Dan took the wife out to where they can go to have a delicious meal. This is one thing that Dan has not done for the wife for a very long time. And he was being so nice to Choma. Up to a point that Choma started asking Dan questions. Why do you want to be the one to give the kidnappers the money? You should have allowed Andy to go and give them the money. What will happen to me if something happened to you? I don't want anything to happen to you. But Dan was being nice. He said, don't worry, my love. Nothing will happen to me. The kidnappers want me to bring the money. I am going to give the money to them and nothing will happen to me. Choma was surprised that Dan is being so nice to her. Dan was calling on the waiter, but then it seems as though the waiter was busy. Dan has to ask Choma to go fetch the waiter, not knowing that Dan has an intention of poisoning Choma. I mean, this Dan is so wicked. Why is he so wicked? You want to poison Choma that has done nothing to you. Choma has always been a submissive husband, a submissive wife to Dan. But Dan, this is a clear evidence that he wants to run away with that money and is not willing to share that money with anybody. When Choma went to call the waiter, Dan put something in Choma's drink and food at the same time. But when Choma came in, Dan was hurriedly telling Choma to finish her drink. I think Choma should have actually asked Dan, why do you feel the need for me to finish this drink so quick? You know Choma cannot question Dan's order. So she went ahead to drink the whole thing, and Dan was so happy. He actually gave Choma a huge sum of money. And Choma was like, why is this guy being so nice to me? But you never know what is coming for you. You are going home to die, because Dan is an evil man that can do anything without looking back. After the encounter Chinwe had with Dan, she has not been herself. She's been so worried that Dan will come to harm her. While she was trying to take a nap, she also remembered what was happening to her where Dan held them. That Dan was the man that used to come and force himself on the women and give them bruises if they tried to stop Dan from sleeping with them. It is so unfortunate that it happened to Chinwe. But while this was about to happen, Chinwe screamed out, and Munachi immediately ran into the room, and she was asking Chinwe what was going on. But Chinwe could not speak. They had to take her downstairs to where they can actually ask her real questions of what is going on with her, because they don't even understand. She has not been like this. They had to pressure Chinwe to speak so that they will be able to help her. And Chinwe now made a confession that it is him. It is him. Who is him and what has happened? And then Chinwe immediately started explaining that Dan is the one that is always coming to where they held them to impregnate those women, so that when they give birth, they will sell the children for money. That Dan is the marksman. Dan is such an evil man. He has been doing evil right from the beginning. That is why he can do anything without looking back. But then Chinwe explained to everybody that Dan has been the one, the marksman, that is always coming to force himself on the women. That the reason why she is finally convinced that it's him is when she saw the mark on Dan's hands. She was the one that gave Dan that mark when Dan was forcing himself on her, and she was trying to prevent him from doing so. On that day, Dan beat her almost half dead, because her being alive right now is only by God's grace. Wow. That is when Andy became so furious and said that now he has gotten the real reason why he is going to deal with Dan. In fact, he's going to kill Dan at this moment, because Dan has actually done the worst for him. Andy was actually falling in love with Chinwe, coming to discover or find out that Dan has actually hurt Chinwe, or Dan is the reason why Chinwe has been hurt and has been so furious about AGK. He's ready to do anything to harm Dan as well. The same thing goes with Rita. Dan is really an evil person. Right now, Rita and Munachi with Andy are ready for Dan. But the mistake they did was to hand over the money to Dan to deliver to the kidnappers. But they wouldn't have done anything otherwise, because they never knew that Dan did this. Not up till now that Choma has been able to reveal to them what happened to her. I just hope that Andy will immediately run after Dan to see if Dan is actually going to give that money to the kidnappers or run away with it, so that they can actually capture Dan now that it's not too late. But then Choma got to the house and she was vomiting blood. Dan is such a wicked man. How can you be so wicked to your wife? She did nothing to you. You just want to kill her for nothing. But then when Choma got home and she was vomiting blood, the gate man came to rescue her. But how far can this go? Choma is already dying. The gate man cannot take Choma to the hospital because he doesn't even have money. Why is Dan so wicked? The wicked men do they say lives with them. Dan is not going to escape with this one. But let's see on the next episode if Dan is going to be captured, or if the kidnappers are going to even let AGK go now that Dan has decided to run away with the money. If you have not liked the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new here. I will bring the next episode as soon as it drops. But for now, take care.